So lately, I've been smiling a bit more in my videos because I am happy. Why? Because SEGA is finally coming back to some sort of prominence. And as a SEGA YouTuber and potentially the king of SEGA YouTube, I have to relish in this aspect of it because some of my fondest memories are on SEGA consoles and in SEGA video games. Now, I'm not expecting SEGA to ever get into the console war once again or anything like that, but it's more so the spirit, more so the history of SEGA that has been, well, a bit neglected. I mean, if you're a Sonic the Hedgehog fan like myself, we've had plenty of stuff. Sonic always gets his love from SEGA. Of course, the rise of the Yakuza series has really been dominant for SEGA as well. There's been many new entries. Seems like every year there's at least one or two new Yakuza games coming out. And of course, Persona, although it's kind of getting milked to death for a lot of people, it doesn't matter because people are still buying these Persona games. But if you like the old school stuff, if you like some of the classic franchises, well, you didn't have much to look forward to. You always heard rumors and murmurs and rumblings like, oh, Sega's gonna do this, Sega's gonna bring back that. But it never seemed like it really came to fruition until the Game Awards 2023. If you watch my Game Awards 2023 coverage and my subsequent follow-up SEGA video, I was thrilled with how SEGA absolutely dominated in terms of surprises with their huge reveal of 5 classic franchises that we haven't seen them for at least a decade with all these franchises are getting brand new entries. We're talking about Jet Set Radio, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Crazy Taxi, and of course, you can't forget good old Shinobi, who I felt should have never gone away. You can always do stuff with ninja games. I mean, people seem to love ninja games. I don't understand why we got rid of Shinobi, but now it's all coming back with brand new entries in these franchises. Then, of course, we learned about some more information from a subsequent interview that Gene Park, the homie over at the Washington Post, did with SEGA themselves. And basically, SEGA said, hey, this is kind of just the start of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to go back to that Dreamcast rebellious era where we just kind of did whatever we wanted and marched to the beat of their own drum. And when you look at the Dreamcast, yes, it wasn't on the marketplace for very long, but it made a huge impact. It had features on that system that were not applicable for modern consoles until the generation after the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. We had games on there that were absolutely timeless classics and stuff like that. Of course, also in that interview, we learned that Virtua Fighter is on the table when it comes to potential future games, and we know that more games were coming, but it kind of was a bit of a mystery. What were those other franchises going to be that SEGA was going to revive? Well, it seems like we've got a leak about that because we have some brand new trademarks that were just redone by SEGA, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And I am absolutely thrilled for one of these, and the other two, I'm kind of questioning it. So we're going to take a look at these now. Obviously, we had to get you guys caught up. Gamatsu made a tweet yesterday on December 13th in the afternoon. SEGA filed the following 4 trademarks on December 6th in Japan, which were made publicly today: Altered Beast, Eternal Champions, Jet Set Radio, and Kid Chameleon. So these are okay, like Altered Beast, Kid Chameleon, and Eternal Champions. We are turning back the clock here, folks. So I kind of want to talk about these 3 franchises. Obviously, we've already talked about Jet Set Radio in previous videos, but I want to talk about these 3 franchises, and I'm going to go from least interesting to me to most interesting with this. So let's start off with Altered Beast. Wise from your grave. I think Altered Beast has an amazing logo. I love the logo. It's very applicable for like hats and t-shirts and stuff like that. Looks like a cool 80s metal band sort of thing. Kind of even, you know, the name sort of sounds like one. But when it comes to Altered Beast, the video game, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't understand. Granted, I got into Sega with Sonic, so, you know, cut me some slack here, but I never liked this game. I've played the arcade version of the game. I've played the console versions of the game, and I'm just like, what am I missing out on here? Like, I guess it's an interesting enough premise, and obviously I feel like they did like an Altered Beast on the PlayStation 2. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like a low budget Altered Beast game came out on the PlayStation 2. And of course, you know, man turning into a beast, like that's kind of cool, I guess, and you could do a lot with that. But I find that one kind of peculiar because I just never really liked Altered Beast. So for me, it's like you would have to completely like it could only be Altered Beast in name and in the transformation process. Like everything else needs to be brand new because I don't like that game. Kid Chameleon. Now that's an interesting one. I never played Kid Chameleon back in the day, but Kid Chameleon recently came to Nintendo Switch Online, and I did not hate it. I kind of liked it, honestly. It's a game that I want to spend a little bit more time, but essentially the chameleon part is, you know, adapting to your environment and becoming different characters in different environments. That actually sounds pretty exciting. That sounds pretty entertaining, and that really sounds like something where you could really get wild with it and have, you know, Kid Chameleon in different sorts of places and different sorts of environments, doing different sorts of things, and just go crazy with imagination, kind of like we're seeing with Princess Peach's Showtime, you know, something like that. I think would be really cool with that bit of Sega flair. But the most interesting one of these is Eternal Champions, because Eternal Champions literally was just 2 games. It was Eternal Champions on the Sega Genesis, and then the Eternal Champions game that came out on the Sega CD. Now, Eternal Champions on the Sega Genesis, I feel like that was supposed to be like bigger than it ended up being. I feel like Eternal Champions was supposed to, you know, lead to all these offshoot games, because we saw an offshoot game on the Game Boy that featured one of the characters. And you could tell that like they wanted to do more with these characters. They wanted to sort of create this world. When you look at Eternal Champions on the Sega CD, like it was a bit better, I feel. You know, I like the fatalities that were in the game. That was actually pretty cool. But I never really felt like Altered Beast was, or Eternal Champions, I guess Altered Beast too, but I never felt like Eternal Champions was really like all that missed. So if we're going this far back into the catalog with some games, it's like, bro, I think like everything's on the table with this, because we're not talking about marquee franchises. We're not talking about stuff that has maybe been relevant 10 years, 20 years ago. We're talking about stuff from the 90s. Kid Chameleon. When was the last time we saw a new Kid Chameleon game? Literally, was it 90, 89 when it came out? Eternal Champions, 93, 94 for this. So for Sega to be going this far back, I have to say it. I have to say it, and you know it's coming. Knights. It's time for Knights. It's time. Knights is a cool character, okay? Knights is an androgynous character that'll fit in great into modern society. Everyone will love Knights because Knights is androgynous. Knights is a good-looking game. Knights is a fun game. It doesn't need to be a huge 20-hour experience or something like that, but once again, much like Kid Chameleon, you can get pretty crazy with Knights. It's been a long time since we've seen Knights. Of course, we had the game Journey of Dreams on the Nintendo Wii, which was our last entry into Knights. Not a bad game if you played it with a classic controller. Not a big fan of the freaking motion controls and that stupid ass owl. Visitor. Shut up, owl. Shut your damn mouth. But this is awesome. Like, this is huge stuff here, people. We're talking about classic games that nobody thought would come back. Of course, Comic Zone. I'm still expecting a Comic Zone to be announced as well, because that's yet another IP that we've heard rumors about for many years, and we've heard things like, oh, they might be making a Comic Zone movie and stuff like that. And if they're doing that, you would kind of want a game to subsequently go alongside of that. And I feel like Comic Zone is yet another game where you can get absolutely creative. It's one of the best looking Genesis games. Hard as hell, so you better put in some additional difficulty options, but the concept of it is so cool. I like this. I like that Sega is getting a little bit wild. You know, they're getting a little bit crazy. They're kind of expanding into different areas, different realms. You know, we're still missing one thing though, Sega. I want to see some HD versions of classic games. There's no reason why Skies of Arcadia, Daytona USA, Virtua Fighter 3 TB, there's no reason why we don't have HD versions of these games available on home consoles. We want to be able to play these games, and unless you're making even if you're making a brand new entry in some of these franchises, people like to play the classics. When you look at stuff like Altered Beast and Kid Chameleon, like, we could play those games on a myriad of devices, but some of the more difficult to emulate stuff, I definitely feel like there's a bit of a missing gap. Especially considering games like Knights HD and Virtua Fighter 2 HD exist on the Xbox Marketplace. Just bring them over to the Switch, I guess I'm saying. But this is awesome stuff, people. I'm very interested to see how all of this is going to play out. We also learned, forgot to mention this before, but Jet Set Radio is kind of like the showcase piece of this. This is the game that, according to Gene Park, he felt like this was the game that they were putting the most time, effort, and really money into when it comes to what game is going to be a bit prioritized as far as a bigger budget. That was the impression he got. I do think it's interesting that in the Crazy Taxi sort of stuff going on, they did post a little video. Sega posted like a little GIF of Crazy Taxi, and they were like, what's the first song that comes to your mind when you see this? So is Offspring gonna be in there? Because if so, yeah. I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked. So let me know what you think of this in the comment section down below. Do you think like Sega's gonna go back to some of these games? Because I mean, why? What's the point? What's the point if you're not gonna bring them back? Like, why are you renewing these trademarks? I obviously think that something is happening with these games, and you know, it kind of makes sense. Let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. I am a Sega YouTuber. I'm not a Nintendo YouTuber. And as always, catch you guys in the next video. Later.